Howdy y'all, Kaloth here, and before we get into later today when we're expecting a new CG news post talking about what's next, I wanted to talk about what we're speculating is coming in the immediate future and a little bit further out. So let's get into it. Right now, we are nearing the end of one content cycle, right? Cal Kestis, Jedi Knight Cal Kestis, is a journey event that was announced several months ago. We have all the requirements for, and we are just waiting for Cal to be put into the game, which all signs point to that happening in tomorrow's title update, tomorrow being June 28th. Today being Tuesday the 27th, CG likes to put news posts out on Tuesday. We can pretty well assume that we're going to see a Cal Kestis kit later today with information on how he's going to be unlocked, how he's going to work. His announcement said that in territory battles, he's going to be pretty important. It's implied that he's going to have territory battle Omicrons, which will be a first. But then the announcement talks about in PvP, he will help, quote, I shouldn't quote because this is an exact quote, but it said something close to he will complete the Jedi squads you've been cultivating over the years. A lot of people are hoping that he is a Jedi Master Luke lifter. I kind of don't think that's what we're going to be looking at. When I hear he's going to complete Jedi squads that you've been cultivating over the years, that to me makes it sound like he is going to provide a home for those leftover Jedi. So with the new Phoenix team that's out, we've got, Captain Rex kicking Ezra off the team, potentially kicking Kanan off the team. Kanan and Ezra could go live with Jedi Knight Cal. You have characters like Ayla Secura, who are galactic legend requirements, but don't really have a permanent home as far as, a Jedi squad in PvP. She would fit there. Those ops units that you've relicked up have the Jedi tag but don't have a home. I'm guessing, and we'll see here soon, that Cal is going to be a lifter for those leftover Jedi. But the big thing coming with Cal is Zeffo. We're getting an entirely new planetary zone in Rise of the Empire, and with it is going to come new operations, new combat missions, bonus missions, deployments, everything that you would expect in a normal planetary zone. It's implied that Zeffo will have that as well. And the gateway to Zeffo is clearing the Seer Junda Cal Kestis bonus mission that already exists in the game, which requires Seer Junda and a version of Cal, either the unaligned Force user, which we currently have, or the legendary that's coming at Relic 7. Everything I have seen, and I have not done this personally, but everything I have seen says that the Seer Cal mission with the current Cal, with Marquis Cal, is just very, very difficult. I haven't actually seen any footage of anybody beating it. I know it has been beaten, but not reliably from what I understand. So basically, Jedi Knight Cal is assumed to be kind of a soft requirement for clearing that mission, which will unlock Zeffo. So you've got a legendary character with several new marquees needed at least Gear 12. One of those needed at Relic 7, plus the legendary himself needed at Relic 7. Enough people in your guild having that to even unlock Zeffo. And then once you have Zeffo unlocked, you're talking about a full slate of operations at Relic 7. We have no idea what units are going to be required, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that Saw, Marin, Tarful, those requirements are probably going to be needed in there either for special missions in that zone or as operations deployments or both, right? And then, of course, everything you do in Zeffo is going to need Relic 7. So we're talking about a high level of guild investment, probably higher than Riva, right? Riva only required 5 units at least R5 to unlock Grand Inquisitor. And then Grand Inquisitor plus 4 of those units taken up to Relic 7 for that special mission. So you're talking 5 R7, 1 R5 character to engage with Riva. To engage with Zeffo, it has the potential. We'll see what it is. You know, they could require a lot of characters that are very commonly relic, right? But otherwise, has the potential to be Riva level investment or higher. So what rewards are going to come with that? I think at the bottom end, we're looking at, you know, additional currency, maybe a Relic 9 catch up, you know, signal data, that kind of thing at the bottom end. At the top end, we could be looking at a new unit or, you know, even something crazy like Relic 10. We could be looking at some very, very major rewards coming from Zeffo. So that's a big question mark. We'll see what they do to address that. And then, of course, the final piece of upcoming content that we know is coming is the Leviathan. Can't talk this morning. Leviathan requirements have been out for a while. We've had them for several weeks at least. We've been able to speculate about them for several months. Everything is available in game. We know the Leviathan is coming imminently, right? I would not be surprised if we got a kit reveal today. If not today, then soon. I've heard a lot of people saying, well, late July or August. No. The announcement for Leviathan said you needed to unlock the Fury Interceptor right away, was the term, if you're going to get Leviathan first. Now, right away can be interpreted a number of different ways, but I think most people have taken it that you need to unlock the Fury after its first 3 runs in Conquest to be able to unlock Leviathan. Wiggle room there, but I think it's safe to assume that before the end of the next Conquest, we'll see Leviathan event pop up, assuming it follows the same pattern as Profundity Executor with a monthly cadence, which there's no reason to think it won't, but that's not confirmed, right? I personally am hoping that Leviathan is going to come around July 7th. We know that, you know, Profundity is on the 30th and Executor is on the 15th, so the 7th kind of splits the difference between those. And selfishly, it gives me a little bit more time because I'm not quite ready. But what comes after that? We know that Leviathan and Cal are the last bits of confirmed content before we are out of this content cycle and into the next. We know that the next thing that we are probably going to see announced is the next Conquest unit. The next Conquest starts Monday, July 10th. So the Tuesday prior to Conquest starting is normally when we'd get that kit reveal. That Tuesday is going to be July 4th, which is a holiday here in the US where CG is based. So we're probably not going to get that announcement on July 4th. You know, we may get it on the 5th before the update. We may get it, who knows, we could get it today. There's a non-zero chance we get it today at least, but at some point we're going to be getting that prior to Wednesday, July 5th, assumedly, when that unit is going to be patched into the game. So who's that going to be? Well, for a lot of reasons, I think Crosshair. And again, I want to stress everything from this point forward is speculation. Don't just take what you hear on the internet and say, oh, this is definitely coming. Nothing is definite. This is all speculative. There are reasons for that speculation, but it's all speculative. But Crosshair's a great option. A likely option, I would say. We'll get into some data mines in a minute that kind of point towards something Bad Batch related coming. And Crosshair's just the best fit. I think the most appealing idea with Crosshair in my mind right now is that he follows the pattern of Captain Rex. Captain Rex, the latest Marquis, has an Omicron that in 5v5 pushes him to work with the Phoenix Squad. In 3v3, it pushes him to work with leftover clones like Commander Cody, Clone Sergeant, that kind of thing. I think that's a really cool option for Crosshair because while having a 6th Bad Batch member would make it to where we could have 2 3v3 teams, in 5v5, I think he could be an Imperial Trooper. Hear me out on this. This Crosshair, this as pictured with the Imperial getup, is actually already represented in game. In Rise of the Empire, we have Imperial Trooper Crosshair, who is actually a light side Imperial Trooper. And of course, spoiler alert, a big part of his arc is working with the Empire as an Imperial Trooper, right? So my speculation here is that we get Crosshair. He'll be a light side Galactic Republic, Clone Trooper, Bad Batch, Empire, Imperial Trooper. Right, light side Imperial Trooper. And that he'll have an Omicron that will, in 5v5, make him work with Imperial troopers, and in 3v3, make him work with the Bad Batch. So again, you'll have 6 Bad Batch members. You can cleanly split them up into 2 3v3 teams. And then in 5v5, you could put him with Iden Versio. You could put him with Veers. You could put him in a number of different spots as an Imperial character. I think it'd be cool. I think it would drive a lot of excitement. Of course, the Bad Batch related thing could be the Havoc Marauder. Maybe that's coming. CG has never done 2 ships in a row in Conquest. Doesn't mean they can't. Just means we haven't seen it yet, right? But my guess, my speculation is that we're going to be seeing a Crosshair announcement soon. If we don't see Crosshair, of course, Sith Eternal Emperor Palpatine is one that people constantly ask for a lifter on, right? We've opened this can of worms where Galactic Legends are getting lifter units, and everybody, I say everybody, a lot of people want C to get a lifter, so he's a possibility. Also, a lot of people are talking Satele Shan. She'd be a great counterpart to Darth Malgus, and would be a 5th Old Republic Jedi, which would be very useful in the crate raid. So we'll see where that goes. My money is on Crosshair, but with the flimsy justification that there's a datamine Bad Batch pack coming. So what comes after that? Everybody is assuming we're getting a Galactic Legend announcement, which is bringing a lot of people to talk about Ahsoka. And I hate to burst anybody's bubble, and of course I could be wrong. This is all speculation. I'm not, this sole arbiter of information or anything. But it's not going to be Ahsoka. I would love it. I love Ahsoka. I love Rosario Dawson's take on the character. I'm very excited for the TV show. But Ahsoka just doesn't fit in the game right now. The version of Ahsoka that we have is from Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Season 2. Which, ostensibly, she'd be like an unaligned Force user. Maybe she could fit with Seer, but there's just not a lot of space for that, and it doesn't seem Galactic Legend worthy. We already have the Rebel version of Ahsoka in Fulcrum. She's well represented. Getting another Rebel version of her just kind of doesn't fit right. And we don't have enough information about her in that New Republic era with, her TV show where she's going to go on and work with Hera and Sabine and hopefully Zeb, where she's going on and doing those kind of continuation things from Rebels. We don't have that information yet, and CG doesn't get to work in advance on TV shows. Even on things like Bad Batch, the 4 Bad Batch members, Omega came a little later, but the 4 Bad Batch members that launched with Season 1 of the Bad Batch weren't based on the show. They were based on Season 7 of the Clone Wars. So CG just doesn't get to work in advance with the TV shows, and I just don't see Ahsoka coming. But that's because, like everyone else, I think Leia is coming, right? First of all, Rebels don't have Galactic Legend representation, even though they're one of the most major factions in Star Wars. I mean, they are the original trilogy protagonists. They're the OG good guys, right? Of the original Rebels, right, you have the big 3, Han, Luke, and Leia. Well, Han, we have a definitive version of Han. Raid Han with the jacket and Han shoots first is kind of the definitive version of that character. Jedi Knight Luke, unfortunately he doesn't have the Rebel tag, but he is the definitive version of original trilogy Luke. We don't have a definitive Rebel version of Leia. We have Princess Leia from Episode 4, who was kind of in that damsel in distress role. We have Rebel Officer Leia from Episode 5, who was in that more powerful leadership role in that movie. She kind of developed more as a character, but Rolo just doesn't really rise to the level of Galactic Legend. She's not a strong character in game. She's okay. She's needed for other things. She's just doesn't rise to that level. She's not a definitive version of Leia. And then finally we have Boush or Boosh or however you pronounce it, who weirdly goes with Jabba the Hutt, which is cool, right? But it's not what I would call a definitive version of Leia. So we still have that space open for a definitive version of Leia as a Rebel Galactic Legend. You see her pictured here in this kind of grainy picture from Return of the Jedi, in her Rebel officer getup. This is what I hope we'll see. A lot of people are hoping, maybe it'll be Endor Leia with the poncho and the hat, or maybe Bright Tree Village Leia with the long hair. But one way or the other, I think we're going to get an Episode 6 Leia. I think she will be a Rebel Galactic Legend. Resistance Leia would be great, but I think that's for the future. So let's talk about why we think some of these things. Number one, we've got the datamine section of the Galaxy of Heroes event server. This Discord server is great if you've ever used it. Definitely ought to check it out. I'm on here all the time because there's a ton of really good info here. Datamine on June 14th were all the following upcoming packs for the store. And in there, you've got a lot of things that we would expect, right? You've got Tarful, Marin, Saw, Seer, Cal, and just a general unaligned Force user bundle. All those very clearly tied to the upcoming Cal Kestis event. We have Basta Lashan, who is needed for Leviathan. And Jolie Bendo, he's a little weird here, but again, Basta Lashan is needed, and we have an Old Republic Datacron that actually does a lot of good things for her. Of course, Jolie is also used in the raid, so, there's a little bit of a tie there. We've got a bunch of gear stuff, a bunch of Datacron stuff, which is generic. And then we have these. We have 3 Bad Batch packs coming. We have the Bad Batch Ultimate Pack, the Premium Pack, and the Character Chance Pack. These sound great, except we don't really have anything in the game right now that points towards the Bad Batch. So, CG often ties store releases to current content or upcoming content. This, to me, says that we're going to be getting some sort of Bad Batch unit, right? Whether it's a marquee, new legendary, whatever. And the timing just fits to where this just really does scream Conquest unit to me. So we'll see how that goes. We'll get that announcement soon, and we'll see who's right there. But I do think Crosshair is a very likely option. And then we've got this little guy here, Ewok Squad Bundle. Nothing in the game uses Ewoks right now, right? They're not used in the raid. I'd have to look. I don't think any Ewoks are needed for operations. They might be. We'll have to check that. There's no Datacrons, no really impactful Omicrons. There's just not really anything that uses Ewoks right now. Maybe there's a new Ewok coming. I don't know. But the biggest reason to bring anything Ewok related would be Return of the Jedi Leia, right? If you had a GL Leia based on her Episode 6 version, undoubtedly you would require Ewoks. At the very least, you'd require Wicket, right? So that's why we're thinking that. Then, of course, Character Bundle 53 here. It's interesting to note, Captain Rex was actually Character 52, which has been, that store bundle has actually been in the data mine for a little while. So whatever Character 53 is still coming. So let's take a look if Leia is coming. So what are we expecting to see as requirements if a Galactic Legend Leia is announced? Well, I've had a tab here in my squad loadouts for a while, where I've just kind of kept an eye on some characters and just want to walk through what I think are possible and what I think are some kind of outside Dark Horse options, right? We have the A New Hope versions of each of these characters. We've got Princess Leia, Han, Farm Boy Luke, and then C-3PO and R2-D2 are kind of the definitive versions of their characters. And also Chewbacca, again, kind of the definitive version of those characters. The droids I don't think are likely. You already need R2 at Relic 7 for Luke. You need C-3PO at High Relics for Jabba and Mid Relics for Luke. So there's not a lot of value that CG can push there unless they wanted to require him at Relic 8 or Relic 9, right? But Princess Leia, Stormtrooper Han, Farm Boy Luke, I think all three are strong options for a potential upcoming GL Leia. Princess Leia, especially as being kind of the base version of that character, I think you can expect to see her at Relic 7 or higher. Of course, a lot of people have Stormtrooper Han at, Relic 5 for Sana Staros. I think you could very well see him push to Relic 7 or higher. Farm Boy Luke is a character that there's just no point in gearing. If he's needed for ops, I have forgotten that. Otherwise, I can't think of any reason to have Farm Boy Luke geared. You see mine is still very low geared. There's just no use for him in game right now. He would make sense as a GL requirement. Moving into Empire Strikes Back, Rebel Officer Leia, Lando, and Captain Han Solo, again, all needed for Jedi Luke at low to mid relics, all possible options. Chewbacca, I don't expect to see Chewie in here. Leia didn't have a strong relationship with Chewie, not that they weren't allies, but it's very easy to leave Chewie out, and there are a lot of other options, but he is very possible. If he does show up again, just because he is already needed at Relic 6 for Luke, I think you can expect to see him pushed higher if required. One, I think, is a slam dunk. If GL Leia was announced today, I think it would be safe enough to go ahead and relic this guy, is Wicket, right? Wicket was the Ewok that found Leia in Return of the Jedi after she crashed her speeder. They had a close connection. Other Ewoks may be required as well, but definitely I think you can expect to take Wicket up to Relic 7 or higher. I think Wicket is a strong option. An unlikely option, but definitely kind of outside, dark horse, would be her Resistance allies. Obviously, post-Rebel life, Leia went on to lead the Resistance, where she had Poe as her protege. Amilyn Holdo was a childhood friend. Rey was kind of her Jedi protege, or Padawan, if you will. And then, of course, Han is Han. Han and Leia are like peanut butter and jelly, right? They go together. So if you get any requirements that represent this part of her life, and remember that GL requirements are often split up in a couple of different groups, and each of those groups has kind of a thematic link. So if you had a thematic link that was like, hey, this is her Resistance version, these characters are options. All 5 of these are needed for Galactic Legends already, right? Smuggler Han is needed for Kylo Ren. The rest are needed for Rey. And so there's just not a lot of room for CG to require further relics there without it being just kind of a handout to existing players, which is why I think that's probably not going to happen, but can't rule it out. Similar, her Imperial enemies. I don't think this is going to happen, but you can't rule it out. Vader is highly reliced already, but Tarkin is really not. You take him to Relic 3 and just kind of leave him there unless you're pushing fleets in GAC and really need a good executrix. Imperial Probe Droid is another one. A lot of people have this relic for when it had the really good Datacron, but other than that, there's not much use for it. And it definitely does have kind of a tangential connection to Leia. And then, of course, if in those kind of thematic groups, one of the group of requirements represented her family, these are the options, right? Padme, her mother, Anakin, her father, and then Kylo/Ben, her son. The problem here is, again, Padme and Anakin are both very heavily relic. Padme is needed at R8 for Lord Vader. General Skywalker and Jedi Knight Anakin are both at R7 for most people, I think. I think Jedi Knight Anakin is actually needed at R7 for Jedi Master Kenobi, and then General Skywalker is just people want him high relics. Kylo is an interesting option, though. Again, both Kylos are needed for SLKR, and then Ben Solo is that Conquest character, which they've opened that can of worms, right? Leviathan requires the Fury Interceptor, so requiring an older Conquest character is possible for her. Of course, if you have Rey, or if you're using him for ops like I am, you already have Ben Solo at high relics, but it's, possible. Here's where I think we get into much more likely territory. A lot of these leftover rebels, Hoth Rebel Scout, Hoth Rebel Soldier, Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, and Lobot. Lobot especially, you'll notice I don't even have mine at 7 stars. I really should finish that in preparation for the potential/likely GL Leia. Because I think Lobot is a slam dunk for one of those oddball, you need to relic this, just kind of eat your vegetables kind of thing. Like Mob Enforcer for Jabba the Hutt. A lot of Galactic Legends have these relic requirements that aren't necessarily great, but are needed for the GL, and Lobot fits that bill. Of course, the newest marquee is Captain Rex. CG releases marquees usually leading into something, and Captain Rex was on Endor. So we can pretty well assume that Rex is going to be a requirement if a GL Leia is coming. And if Rex is a requirement, then the rest of his Phoenix squad might be as well. You notice that I have the main squad here without the Jedi, Ezra and Kanan. I've got them kind of in a leftover. Number one, because this lineup of Phoenix works really well. If you have to drop two, the two to drop are Ezra and then very potentially Kanan, which makes sense because, again, I think Cal Kestis is going to be a leftover Jedi character, and I think Kanan and Ezra are going to go live with Cal. So I think you could see these Phoenix characters required at Relic. Definitely Rex. Hera is already needed at Relics if you have Profundity, and by the way, every GL up to this point has required a ship. The ship that is tied most closely to Leia is actually Profundity, which would be a pretty major requirement. It would definitely be the first time any kind of GL level farm like that is needed as a requirement for a GL. But it's definitely possible, which would suck for me because I don't have Profundity. I've been going hard for Leviathan, but you know, it is what it is. But these are kind of what you can expect to see from the GL Leia requirements. Undoubtedly, there are things that I've missed, and very obviously not all of this will be required, but it's something to kind of keep in mind if that is, in fact, where we're going in the game. And again, speculation is speculation. There's nothing set in stone here. Something to watch for if you see upcoming marquees that have a connection to Leia. If you see General Han Solo or Endor Pathfinder Luke or Scout Trooper, who I would absolutely love to see in the game. This is the best opportunity to bring in Scout Trooper. Or even things like Bail Organa, who would be a very sensible requirement for Leia. I think you can take anything like that as tacit confirmation that that's coming. And again, with a road ahead likely coming later today, this very well may be answered very soon, because as we reach the end of the current content cycle, they're going to want to tease the next content cycle. So that's where we are. That's where we're going. We'll see what happens later today. Maybe I've got some of this right. Maybe I don't. But either way, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you. What are we likely to see?